the session tonight would not be possible. And for every participant that has been deciding week in, week out, be part of this program, I congratulate all of you. Like how I was introduced, my name is Samson Genya. I have a background in software engineering, and I also studied business at Joseph Business School. Um, on a day-to-day basis, I run a software company called Endless Tech Limited. We just found along Aliasan Mwenyi Road, just beside the Tigo headquarters building in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. As you can see, I am actually inside a car because somehow I made a decision to pick one road to lead me home instead of the other road. And the road that I chose, the road that I decided to take, happened to have a whole lot of traffic. So I could not make it home in time for this program. So I had to park the car. I decided to park the car and host it in the back seat. And when it is finished, I'm gonna continue driving the remaining maybe 1 point something kilometers to home. Yeah, so I think this is great for decisions because this is a result of a decision. I had two roads to take. I contemplated, I weighed my reasons, and I decided that you know what, I'm gonna take the left one. And here we are. Maybe if I had taken the right one, maybe I'd be home, or maybe not. Who knows? Maybe it could have been worse on the other one, but who knows? But everything is a decision. So, so I think that's a good way of sorting it. And like Felicia said, we have a subtitle that says indecision is a decision in itself. And in that, just a reminder to us that it does not matter if you actually decide or if you do not decide, but whatever it is that you do, you've already decided. So if you decide, it's a decision. If you don't decide, that is also a decision. In that our lives are actually moved by decisions. I think one of the things that separates us from base animals in Kingdom Animalia, where we're actually part of, is that we have the willpower to decide what it is that we like, what it is that we don't like, what it is that is close to our values and what it is that is not close to our values, what it is that we actually prefer, not even a bad thing, but it is just something that we don't prefer, etc., etc. So I'm going to walk you through this course. Obviously, it does not mean that it is covering everything, but as much as I can, I will try to answer your questions and to address the stuff that is ahead of us. So without further ado, let us continue. Right, so so decision itself is a noun, and as we know, decide is a verb, and they are both coming from Latin, decidere. Decidere means to determine. So it's about being resolute. It's about reaching a conclusion after you've made a consideration. So whenever we're talking about a decision, we're talking about, we're thinking that, or we are understanding that you had a thought process before you reached that decision, to the point that you were able to come to bring something into a settlement or to cut it. If it was a problem, or if it was an issue, you were able to come to a conclusion in it. Now, of course, in life, there's going to be different kinds of decisions. Some decisions will be big, some decisions will be small, but every decision is going to involve your mental faculty in terms of thinking to allow you to come to a conclusion or to a resolution after you've made some consideration. It's like I said, it's coming from decidere, a Latin decidere, which means like to cut off or to bring to a conclusion or to determine. So that at the core is what a decision is. So as long as you're still wishy-washy, you're still double-minded, you're still indecisive, you've really not decided. You've only decided when you really have determined what it is that you want to do, maybe in that situation or in life or regarding a certain person, etc. So that is the definition of decision. And then comes Steve Covey, who is a psychologist, also has written several books. One of his most famous book is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, as well as The 8th Habit. He has a quote that says, "I am not a product of my circumstances. I'm a product of my decisions." And what he's trying to convey here is that the way we are today is a direct result of all the decisions that we've made in the past. Just like I said, how the way that I am here in my car right now is a product of the decisions that I made. Maybe by deciding to drive the car today, maybe I could have used Bolt or Uber, or maybe it's a product of a decision of deciding to live at the place where I was living at the time that I left. Maybe if I left a little bit earlier, I would have been home by now. So everything that is happening in your life, the way things are right now, it is not circumstances, it is not somebody conspiring against you. It is really a product of decisions. Now, the best way to live it is that it is a product of your decisions. But if you don't decide, as we already say, that indecision is itself a decision. So if you don't decide, you're going to somehow surrender that decisive power to dominant people in your life, and they're going to decide your life for you in terms of being controlling. So they're going to be a little bit controlling in your life. So your life, the way it is right now, it is a result and a function of the small and big decisions that you've made so far. So your ability to choose is what makes you a human. And of course, if you don't decide, like I said, your power to decide is going to fall into the hands of the most dominant people in your life. For instance, when you don't have a plan, you've not decided what your day is going to look like, a friend of yours is going to tell you, "Come with me, let's go out." And you're going to be, yeah, let's do that. And 3 hours later, you're finding yourself that you've lost 3 hours. You've not done anything productive. You actually hate that you went out that night. And you are wondering, how did it happen? It happened because you had not decided in terms of what it is that you actually want to do with your time. So we are actually a product of our decisions. And now decision-making itself, this process of decision-making itself, is really a selection of a belief, something that, a course of action that you believe deep down to be the right course of action, the right way of doing things, something that you prefer among several possible alternatives. We say that there must be several possible alternatives because if there are no alternatives, then you've already been robbed of that opportunity to make a decision in such a way that if you cannot choose between maybe 2 or more things, then in a way, you've already been placed in a situation where you cannot make these decisions that we want you to make, or life wants you to make. And the good thing is that every single situation in life, even when you think that you're backed against a corner, there's always a decision. Fighting is a decision. Giving up is a decision. So at least at all circumstances, there's always going to be at least more than one possible alternatives. And this process of identifying and choosing alternatives is always based on your values, on your preferences, and on the beliefs of the decision maker. So you, as the principal, or as the decision maker, every single person has things that they value, things that they prefer, and things that they believe in, based on their worldview, how they see the world. So some people are pessimistic, they see the world in a negative way. Some people have an optimistic worldview, they see the world in a positive way. And obviously, this is going to impact the way they make decisions because they believe in the world in a different way. So another person would go for something that they believe would not would not give up, would say, you know what, even if things are tough, COVID-19 made me lose my job, I'm deciding to actually spend a little bit time to study a new trade, to study a new skill, to get to know something a little bit better, so that I can, by applying myself, by learning this new trade, I get to become a better person, and maybe apply for a new job, start a new career. And so all this is really based on beliefs, on values. And some decisions are really based just on preferences. You've gone out and the waiter or the waitress comes to you and they bring you the menu and they tell you, what would you like to have this evening? And most of the time, we really choose the food that we want to eat just based on our preferences. Maybe because you like a certain flavor of pizza, you're going to order that flavor. Or if you have a value of being loving to learn or to taste new stuff, based on that value, now you're going to order a food that you've never eaten before as a decision of what you want to eat. And that obviously is going to impact how it's going to be. Maybe the food will agree with you, maybe you're going to have stomach runs, but whatever it is that is going to happen is really a function of your decisions. Now, the most key things in a decision making, as I've already explained them, are only, the most key things are two. The first is the alternative, because there is no decision if there's no alternative. And the good thing is that every single circumstance in life, there's always at least more than one decision. Giving up is a decision, like I said, and fighting on is also a decision. There's some decisions have multiple alternatives. Some decisions have only two alternatives. There's also the psychology part, like how I've explained it. There's always values, things that you actually care for, preferences, things that you prefer, and beliefs, things that you actually believe to be true from the core of your being. And this is what makes one person to decide differently from another person. Now, of course, just because your values and your preferences and your beliefs make you decide in a certain way in a specific scenario, does not mean that you're always going to be right in your decisions. Some decisions are going to be wrong, even if it is part of your values and it is part of your preferences and it is part of your beliefs. And some decisions are going to be right. In some situations, whatever decision you choose, it's really not wrong. For instance, maybe you have two pairs of shoes and they're both black. Let's say one of them is black leather cap-toe shoe and one is a brogue black shoe, and you decide that I'm going to wear a cap-toe shoe. There's really nothing wrong with that decision, because in the end, it is just a matter of preference, and that's the shoe that you want that morning. Obviously, if you're going to play soccer now and you wear a leather shoe, now that's a wrong decision, because even if it is the shoe that you prefer, maybe it is the shoe that your mother bought you and you really like it and it has sentimental value to you, but based now on the circumstance, based on the situation, the psychology for that decision is wrong, because you've allowed your preferences and your values to interfere with the reality of the matter. So at times, our beliefs can lead us to a wrong decision. Our preferences can lead us to wrong decisions, as well as our values as well. Now, all our lives, from the day that we're born to the day that we die, we make decisions. Like I say, what clothes we're wearing, like this morning, I chose this thing. This was a decision. What you're eating, whether or not you're actually walking. Are you going to walk a little bit faster or a little bit slower? If you're going to exercise every morning, or maybe a few days every week, or maybe never, that's a decision. Whether or not you're going to pray, at what time, that's a decision. Whether or not you're going to play, at what time, that's also a decision. Being here in this Zoom meeting, I'm seeing at least 14 participants, including me. This is a decision. Some people are supposed to be here based on one decision or another decision that they made, they cannot be here. Everything in life is a function of decision. Now, there's like three main categories of decisions, and these are categorized based on the length of the decision's impact in your life. It's a matter of how long you're going to live with that decision and its implication. So you know, there's many categorization of decisions. If you go online, you're going to find several categorization of decisions, but I like this categorization because it allows you to think really before you decide. We know that there's that old adage that says think before you do, but it's not something that we always do. But I think with this categorization, it really helps us to actually think before deciding. So we have these three, and the three categories are: first, it is small decisions. These are decisions that have impact of less than a day. For instance, deciding whether you're going to sleep in your light blue or gray pajamas, or just a loose t-shirt and a trouser. You know, whatever it is that you decide to sleep on, it has very little impact in your life. Matter of fact, if you're not married, most likely nobody's gonna see you in your pajama, only you. You know, nobody really cares what pajama you wear. I personally don't care what pajama you wear. You don't care what pajama I wear this evening, or whether or not I'm gonna be in any pajama at all. So this by itself is a small decision. You know, whether or not you wear one of your three belts, you know, it's a small decision. Its impact, it's less than a day, and you know, uh, it really does not matter which way you go. And most small decisions usually don't have an option for a wrong decision. Most of them can be the right decisions, and it won't matter what decision you choose, as long as it's a small decision and it has minimal impact in your life. Then there are mid decisions. These are decisions that have a little bit of a longer impact, in that it can go beyond a day to a long time, let's say a year, around a year. And here we're talking about decisions that you can easily change, and you can bounce back in case you're wrong. So for instance, what you choose to eat on a particular day. So, you know, you might be walking down the road, your mother told you not to eat without washing your hands, but you saw some samosas that you really like and you want to eat them. So you go, you buy two, you eat them. It's a small decision in a way, but it can have an impact in that it might give you a stomach run. So you might have stomach runs for 3 days, you know, but you can bounce back a little bit because now you know a little bit better. And next time you see those samosas, maybe you're not going to buy them, or you're going to make sure that you wash your hands before you eat them. Yeah, so it's a small decision in a way. So it's a small decision in a way. Yeah. For instance, what you choose to wear at work. You know, what you choose to wear when you go to sleep is a small decision, but what you choose to wear at an interview, for instance, might be a mid decision. It might impact you a little bit because those people are going to see that as your first impression, and it might impact you in a way that maybe it might make you lose the interview, or it might make you get the interview just because of the way you are presented. Now, if it happens that you lose the interview, you can still bounce back, because now you have a lesson, and now you know that maybe you need to appear a little bit more professional next time you go to another interview. So these are also decisions that you can still bounce back. You can still bounce back. So these are decisions that, you know, you can take a gamble on, because, you know, you're really not sure how it's going to turn out. It might turn out really good. It will, you know, bounce back of coming back. Then there are decisions that are called big decisions. Now, these are the decisions that impact you for a long time. For instance, what college major you decide on. So for instance, I chose to study software engineering. That's 4 years of my life. 4 years of my life. Now, if this decision is something that I just made on a whim, guess what? Maybe software engineering is at the end of my, then I'd have to go back on the drawing board and maybe be very frustrated with my life, or go back to college and study another major. So that's going to take a little bit longer time for me to bounce back. You know, life always presents us with the second choice. That is the truth about life. But sometimes the second choice is a little bit farther where we would like it to be. You know, we want the second choice to be a little bit closer, but if you choose the wrong college major, bouncing back might be a little bit, it might take you a little bit more than a year to fix. Or for instance, who you choose to marry. You know, this is definitely going to impact you for a longer period of time, because most marriage vows goes something like until death do us part. So that's a whole lot of long time, my friend. I mean, we always say that life is short, but life is long when you're married to a wrong person. So you know, you might say, maybe they're going to die in few years, but you know what's going to happen? They're going to be alive until they're 90. Yeah, so it's going to be gonna be a long ride for you. Or or how you choose to raise your children. So for instance, you've decided to start a family with your wife, with your husband. How you decide to raise your children, in what environment, in what belief system, what school you're going to send them is going to impact you in a long term. Because now when they get into the adolescent age, they're going to be either a problem to you or a blessing to you. And this is going to impact you for a long period of time. So for instance, when it comes to what pajama you're going to wear tonight, you might not need to spend more than a minute thinking about it. But when it comes to choose what college major you're going to choose, I would tell you actually spend time thinking about it. Spend time contemplating. In case you don't know about software engineering, contact the person who has studied software engineering. Ask them about, you know, how his work, you know, what it is that he's facing on a day-to-day, what it is that he faced on the 4 years that he spent at college. Is it necessary to get a degree in that field? Is it possible to pursue a career in that field without a college degree, etc., etc.? It's going to take you some time. You know, if you're going to spend some time with a person that you're going to marry for the rest of your life, obviously take your time. Take your time to pray. Take your time to date them. You know, take your time to know about their cycles, their friends, the family that they're coming from. You know, get to know the person. Are they crazy? You know, would they kill you? Are they psycho? Are they a serial killer? You need to know these things before you commit yourself to this person, because this is not something that you can just wake up in the middle of the night and say that I hate this pink pajama. You choose the orange one. Nobody's going to ask you. But when you're married, that's a little bit higher level of commitment. So when you're doing bigger decisions, you must be able to bring it to a settlement in a way that you've spent time thinking about it, researching about it, learning about it, etc. So as long as you are approaching life and knowing that life is a total of your decision, make sure that you are at least thinking about what decision is this decision specifically that is I'm being faced with right now. So is it a small decision? Is it a mid decision? Or is it a big decision? Yeah. Now there's like four biases, four main biases really that we face in terms of decision making. So allow me to share another screen that gives us a little bit of yeah. So is everybody seeing that?
Yes.
Yes. So there's four biases that that limit us when we want to make a decision. Like I say, decision making is a process. So there's a bias called narrow framing. This is when we know whenever we try to make a decision, even when a person goes to ask for assistance or for advice, they usually go to hey Felicia, do you think I should do this or this? You know, all of us do that all the time. So this by itself is a bias that we call narrow framing, in that you're thinking that your options are based on A or B. Maybe doing something A or something B. Is it possible that your options are not limited to just choosing between wearing the black pajama and the gray pajama? It's possible to actually just decide to wear a loose trouser and a t-shirt, or you know, something else, or maybe shorts and a t-shirt. You know, so don't allow yourself to be narrow framing. Another bias, of course, I'm going to go a little bit deeper on this when I share the other document, which I also shared with you earlier. A confirmation bias is a bias when you already make an assumption and then you're trying to find data to prove your assumption without actually knowing for true whether or not your assumption is right. And then there's the short-term emotion, which might actually blur you from thinking that, from deciding the correct decision. And finally, the final bias that we're going to study is overconfidence. This is when you think that you cannot make a wrong decision, which is not true, because everybody can make a wrong decision. So the first thing that you should do for narrow framing is it leads us to overlook options. Like I said, it leads us to overlook options, and it focuses us on the either or whether or not should I do this or that kind of decision. And most teenagers and most people who are in the executive, people who are business leaders, CEOs, sometimes find themselves in this trap, thinking that the decisions are either A or B. Now, what we need is to uncover new options. And when possible, we need to consider simultaneously through multi-tracking. Think about end. For instance, is it possible to do A and B? For instance, I have interns that have joined my company, 5 of them, 3 from the University of Dar es Salaam and 2 from Zumba University. And when they came in, and I allowed them to choose, because software engineering is kind of broad, and I allowed them to choose one area where they want to focus. And so some of them would come to me and they say, brother, do you think I should choose area A or area B? And I told them, what about you choosing area A and B? Is it possible, for instance, to do both things at the same time, multitasking them, or to find new options, find somebody that has solved that similar problem maybe somewhere else in the world, look for bright spot locally, is there somebody else that has solved that problem in Tanzania, for instance, or in Dar es Salaam? Or is there a best practice regionally, or is there analogy from maybe distant domain? Maybe in the US, somebody has solved the problem that you're facing using a certain way. So just try to look for multiple options. Widen your options. This is what you should always do. When you're faced with a decision that you think you're cornered and there's only 2 ways, A or B, try to widen your options a little bit. And by widening your options, it allows you to come to a position where now you know, okay, you know what? This is something that maybe I should do, or this is something that I should not do. The second bias, like I said, is the bias that we so in assessing our bias, we skewed and self-serving information to combat. Can you guys hear me?
You're a little
Hello?
stuck. I don't know if it's me or it's you.
There was a call coming in my phone, but I canceled it.
Okay.
I'm glad you can hear me. So the
Yes.
confirmation bias leads us to collect skewed self-serving information. So, for instance, before buying an iPod, you think that an iPod already has a problem, and you ask yourself what problems that an iPod have. So instead of doing that, to combat this, ask a disconfirming questions, and also try to zoom out and zoom in. For instance, zooming out is when you're looking for best rates. This is a decision that is based. So this is a decision that is based on if whether or not you want to buy an iPod. So so for instance, for a person that is trying to buy an iPod, you need to at least test your assumptions, reality test your assumptions. Is there a way, for instance, to test the waters before before jumping in head first and just being biased and confirming your own bias? Just reality test your assumptions. I know you have assumptions, but just reality test your assumptions. Are they actually true? And whenever possible, just conduct a small experiment to actually know whether or not your bias is actually warranted, and it is something that that you should have. Why predict when you can know? So instead of predict, for instance, for me, as I am doing this meeting, I had to, instead of just predicting that I'm not gonna make it at home, I reality tested my assumptions. Let me just drive. The assumption is that I'm gonna make it home in 1 hour, and in 1 hour I had not made it home yet. So I parked the car. My assumptions were right. I parked the car at where I had imagined I'd park the car, and I was able to start this. The third bias is the emotional bias. Short-term emotions usually tempt us to make bad decisions in the long term. And to avoid that, you need to attain a little bit of a distance by shifting perspective. So for instance, instead of asking yourself, what should I do in this decision? Ask yourself this: what would you tell your best friend, that person that you really care about? What would you tell your very best friend? So for personal decisions, ask yourself, what would you tell your best friend to do? And for a business decision, ask yourself this. So for instance, when you're at work and you have a decision to make, ask yourself this: when you are, if it happens that your boss fires you today, they fire you today, what would your successor do? That person that is coming in to replace you, what would they do? Because obviously they would not want to be you. They would want to make a better decision. And that is the decision that you want to make. Or try the 10-10-10. 10-10-10 is a decision-making model that asks yourself 3 questions. Is this decision going to matter in 10 years? So if it's not going to matter in 10 years, obviously you don't want to do it. Is it going to matter in 10 months? Is it going to matter in 10 days? So 10-10-10. So you can always apply the 10-10-10 in any way that you want. It could be 10 days, 10 hours, 10 minutes, but usually we usually take it from the years perspective, because then years allows you to do it for big decisions, mid decisions, and small decisions. Is it going to matter? Is it really going to matter? Just attain a little bit of a distance before you allow your emotions to really jump in. So for people who are falling in love and you're heads over heels, you're in love, that's the person that you want to marry, try to attain a little bit of a decision. Do you want to be with that person 10 years down the line? Do you actually want to be with that person 10 months down the line? Are you sure that you're going to survive the person just 10 days from today? Because it could be that you're in love, but you're just in love today. Tomorrow, you're no longer in love. So when decisions are agonizing, you need to clarify your core priorities and go offensive on them. So there's a story about a Navy ship that that always was facing a problem of bolts having rust. So obviously a Navy ship is going to spend a lot of time in water, and maybe every 5 months they would have to replace all the bolts in the ship, which was costing them a lot of time. And there's this new admiral that the US Navy just promoted, and when they promoted him to be the admiral of this ship, the first thing he did was to sit down and agonize about what to do about this problem with the bolts. And he remembered, you know what? There's a certain level of iron called stainless steel that does not have that does not get rust. Somehow for many years, although stainless steel was existing for maybe 50, 20 years, nobody in the army had thought about using stainless steel bolts that they would never get rust. So he decided to use stainless steel bolts, and obviously the rest was history. They never had ever again to replace the bolts every 5 months. So, but he could only do this because he asked himself, what would happen if, although I'm promoted, what would happen if I'm fired today and there's new admiral that has to make decisions about the ship? And the fourth bias, primary bias that we have is being overconfident. Everybody believes that the decisions that they make is the best decision on earth. Like no decision ever on earth has ever been made that is better than them. Again, I'm loving the getting married example because maybe it's an example that anyone can relate with in terms of a social construct. You know, your parents might be telling you that, you know, son, I think this girl is bad, or daughter, I think this guy is bad, but you know, you're overconfident. You know, you think that you will never be wrong, and obviously you continue that relationship, and then later you say, oh, mama, you were right, daddy, you were right, etc. So thinking that we know how the future will unfold is a very high level of pride, because in truth, you really don't know what is going to happen in the future. You really don't know. I don't know, and you don't know. We should be prepared for bad outcomes as well as good outcomes. But what should we make to, just ask yourself what it is that is going to make you reconsider your decision and prepare for that. You can set yourself some tripwires to snap your attention at the right moments. So for instance, if you're just starting to date this person, me and relationship examples anyways, if you're starting to date this person, instead of being overconfident, just try to set a little bit of tripwires. So let's say if you take the person to an outing, are they cautious and kind to the waitress and waiters? You know, that could be a tripwire telling you that this person actually doesn't respect people, you know, and it could be telling you something about the person. So David Lee Roth is a musician, a very famous musician in the US, actually, not here. And obviously his type of music makes him not to be very famous in this part of the country. But what he did is that, you know, every musician, every big musician in the US, whenever you are preparing a concert for him, he has what they call a brief. So a brief is a document that he says what he wants. So maybe he would tell you, I need a stage that is as big as this, as high as this, and it has this color, maybe it has this screen. I want my mic to not to have a wire. I want my mic to not to be shared by anyone. So all those specifications, yeah? So David Lee Roth, in his brief that he would hand over to people that prepare his concerts, he had a very small line in the brief that tells the people that prepare his concerts that I want brown M&Ms. I'm sure you guys know M&Ms, those small sweet things, eh? Yes. So he had a very small line in there that says, I want only brown M&Ms in my backstage for me to chew. Now, most people that prepare his concerts would never read the complete brief. They would just go and set up the stage. When he gets there, no brown M&Ms. And then he knows that these are not people that pay attention to details. You see? So when he's going to do sound checks, he can always know that, okay, these people have not done their true attention to detail, to the point that now they've already missed a very key thing that I've set as a tripwire, so that as I'm performing, no problem is going to happen with maybe the stage or the mics and everything, because the stage and the mic are the big thing, but if they did not see the small thing, it's still going to matter. Zappos is a company in the US that is an online store. It started as e-commerce online store that sells shoes. And what Zappos did, you know, those terms and conditions, which both you and me always just check as if we have read them, but we have never read them. So Zappos put $1,000 offer in their terms and conditions. So if you read them somewhere in like, maybe, I think it's page 7 or page 8, it says you have won $1,000. Email us at this and this, and we will send you your money. And people would actually get this money. But for maybe 8 years of doing it, only 11 people read the terms and conditions. So this is something like a tripwire that can help you in your decision. So in your own decision, you can always set yourself some tripwires. Let me go back to my presentation and try to make it a little bit faster to. So like I said, the RAP process: widen your options, reality test your assumptions, attain distance, and prepare to be wrong. This is going to help you combat. This is going to help you combat the biases in decision making. Now I'm going to present to you some 6 questions that will help you to decide better. The first question: imagine the option that you're currently leaning towards simply vanishes as a feasible alternative. What else could you do? And this question is designed to help you get more options, because maybe in your mind you've only found one option. So in your mind, the only option that you can think of is that the only option that I have is to maybe go to college and study medicine to be a doctor. Now imagine that you cannot study MD, you cannot study to become a medical doctor. What else could you do? Then if you ask yourself this question, you find yourself, oh wow, so there's that other option. Okay, you know what? Okay, so I could be a dentist. Okay, I could be a psychiatrist. Okay, I could be a psychologist. Okay, oh wow, there's also public health. Oh yes, there's that, there's midwifery, there's nursing, there's that and that and that and that. So this question is designed to help you get multiple options. The second question is: imagine the alternative that you're currently considering will actually turn out to be a terrible decision. Where could you go to look for the proof of that right now? So the first question is about it's about widening your options. It's about widening your options. Now, the second question is here to help you to reality test your assumption. So what could I do right now to help me know that, you know what, software engineering bachelor is going to be bad? So before I actually jump full weight to 4 years degree and then turn out to be a terrible decision, where could I go to look for proof? So part of where I could go to look for proof would be for people who have actually studied software engineering. Are they miserable? Did they enjoy it? I could go at maybe at the university, get their prospectus, go through the summary of syllabus, look at it. So that could be some of the proof to look at whether or not this is going to be a very terrible decision. Third question: how can I dip a toe in this decision without diving in head first? So for instance, maybe this is why there's dating. Before marriage, there's dating. Dating is kind of dipping your toe to see, okay, is this thing working? Is this something that I actually want or not? And is this a bad decision or not? Etc. etc. So you must ask yourself this question: how do you dip your toe in a decision without diving headfirst on? Because you might be diving headfirst, and guess what? It's rock bottom. You're gonna bust your head and you're gonna die. So that's a bad decision to do. But before you do that, find a way to dip your toe. So like I said, if it's a software engineering bachelor, go online. Just take a short course. There are so many online platforms that are offering maybe programming. Try to do a little bit of programming in maybe a week or 2 weeks. Is this something that you're mastering easily? Is this something that you enjoy? Do you think you can do it or not? Try to dip the toe. The fourth question is for personal decision. We already covered this when I was going through the RAP process. For personal decision, what would you tell your best friend to do if he or she was in the same situation? We know you love your best friend. We know that you really care about them, and we know that you don't want them to lose or to be lost. So we know that you're going to advise them to choose the best decision. So ask yourself what it is that you're going to tell your best friend. And if you're going to tell your best friend that, most likely that is something that you should consider doing yourself. For professional decision, again, if you're replaced tomorrow, what would your successor do about your dilemma? You're first in your dilemma, yes, but what would happen if you're fired right now and somebody comes to replace you immediately? What are they going to do about that decision? And the sixth question of the sixth question is 6 months from now, what evidence would make you retreat from that decision, and what would make you double down? 6 months from, let's say you've already started that major, what are some of the things that would tell you, you know what, I've already done one semester and I don't want this bachelor at all, or okay, I've done this one semester of this bachelor and I really want to do it. I want to go for it full time. I have a very good friend of mine called Nancy. She's a programmer like me. She was doing a bachelor of IT and computer engineering at UDism. Just the first year, she realized that, you know what, this is not something that I want. So she dropped out from that degree and she applied for computer science. So obviously it costed her in that she did her bachelor in 4 years, because computer science is 3 years plus the 1 year that she lost doing the bachelor that she did not like. But you need to think about it now. What is some of this evidence that is going to make you think that, you know what, I want to retreat from this decision? What is that? What do you think is going to happen that is going to make you say, oh, you know what, I no longer want to continue dating this person? Or what is it that you think will make you say, you know what, I really want to continue dating this person? You need to decide these things before they happen, so that when they happen, you already know what to do. So you already know what to do. You know what, if I go on the first date and I know that I find out that this person is maybe they are applying themselves, they love God, they're ambitious, that they're working hard about their goals, they're not lazy, I'm gonna want a second date. You need to think about these things before you go to that date, so that when the evidence happens, you actually decide. And a bonus red flag, always be aware of the whether or not decisions. And finally, Tony Robbins says all decision making is a values clarifying exercise. So the best thing that you can do for yourself is to really decide what it is that you actually value. Finally, you have to go out there and get to decide. So thank you guys very, very, very much. That's going to be the end of my presentation. I welcome you all for questions, comments. I had decided to do this and finish before 9, and I think I've succeeded at least in that one accord. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Sam. That was amazing. That was a wonderful presentation. And I cannot imagine like the way you were so relaxed and just taking us through. Oh my God. And you're in your car. We just appreciate so much. And I learned so much myself. And I think a lot of us can attest to some of our practices or maybe mistakes that we have made before, where we have made some big decisions as if they were small decisions, and small decisions as if they were big decisions, and things like that. So, and as a result, we've had consequences, and that we maybe have had to live up to them, and and see how we could somehow correct them or something. But it was a very great presentation, and I believe everyone has been reflecting and maybe taking some snapshots of things to reflect through later on. But I would like to hand over to our people, the audience. Yes, I would like to hand over to our audience. If there are any questions, and maybe some of them can share some of the experiences from the questions. I like the 6 questions because they really relate to. Okay, there's a question from you. Oh, from Musa. Musa, thank you for joining us tonight. So Musa is asking, I did not get the reason why we should be aware whether or not decisions. Can you explain further, please, the bonus part where you said, you know, yes.
Perfect. So thank you very much, Musa. This is a really good question, and I think I did not share this document that I'm screen sharing right now, but I'm going to share it with you at the end of it. So here's why: if a friend or colleague comes to you with a whether or not decision, saying I'm debating whether or not to quit my job, I'm deciding whether or not to buy a new iPad, that's a sign that they're caught in what we've already described as a narrow framing bias. It's a narrow frame because you're narrowing your options to just 2 options. Whether or not means there's only 2 options. So there's only considering one option when chances are they have many options. So try prodding them with question 1 above. So this question here above, imagine the option that you're currently leaning towards simply vanishes as a feasible alternative. What else would you do? So this would goad you and allow you to stop being trapped in narrow framing of whether or not, and forcing you to generate a second and a third and a fourth alternative. And before you know it, you have really valid options that you can actually bank on, you decide on, and something that you can actually, I think, then would help you make your decision-making process a little bit easier, because now it has forced you to think beyond just the whether or not. So instead of saying, I'm debating whether or not I should quit my job and start a business, instead of going for or, is it possible for you to go for and? Say, stay with your job and start a business. Is there a way maybe the business can just be a side gig for a moment, and then maybe grow it slowly until maybe it can cover 3 months of your monthly expenses and then quit your job? That could be an additional option instead of just saying it's either I quit or I stay at my job. So I think I answered that, I frame. So it's like that. That is why you should be aware, because whether or not is kind of stopping you from exploring multiple options.
Thank you so much, Samson. I believe Musa is getting that clarified, and thank you so much about with this guide. It kind of helps us to sort of being a bit independent on when it comes to making decisions, because most of the times I think we're likely to go out to other people. Not that it's a bad thing to go out to other people, but the way you put it, that when we go to other people, we've already made our mind in either this or or not. So this kinds of first helps us when we are first when it begins with our inner self, like what do we want, what are options. It kinds of widens our choices and our considerations. And even when you go to another person for advice or for a guide, to help you making decisions, then at least you already have some options, some alternatives. And I think that's a very good approach, because sometimes, for sure, not everybody has a good influence around them, and when you just give them it's either this or that, then they're likely to lead you to one of them. Not so many will encourage you to to widen your options. So this is very useful. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
So
thank you very much.
yes, so okay, so I would like to hear from our participants on how, touching on the questions that you were mentioning before Moses' question came up, like what has been their experience when it comes to making decisions, and you know, what are some of the initiatives that they've been taking, or maybe some of the mistakes or something like that. It would be very interesting to learn about them, and maybe if there are any challenges when it comes to decision making. So I would, maybe we can have anyone can unmute their mic and just speak up, whoever that, you know, feels like or has an experience to share. It would be nice to hear from everyone. We have Pili. Pili says it's very stressful to deal with a person who cannot make instant decision. Like, what are you going to wear? And they can't decide on one thing. It's much worse when you can't decide for them. Yeah, that must be really, that must be
Yeah,
very
so
difficult.
I think Pili, what most people like, I think it's what Felicia has commented, in that most of us have taken small decisions and we've turned them into big decisions. And that is why people you find people are indecisive about small things like what you're going to wear, because in the end, will it really matter 10 years from now what you're wearing today? You know, then you know that it really, it's not such a big deal, as long as maybe you appear neat, you appear professional, you appear relevant to where you're going, to the context of where you're going. It's really fine. You can just decide on a gift like that and just proceed with it. So as long as you know this is a small decision, then you can always decide easily. Yeah.
I think that's very useful, and I believe after this session will be more, you know, intentional and proactive when it comes to making decisions. We will not be, you know, laid back or having fewer options, or maybe, you know, there are people who are like, you know, whatever everyone says, I'm fine, or, you know, whatever it's decided, then I'm okay. I mean, it's not bad. It's not always bad, but, you know, at least you should have, you know, don't go where your heart is not really there. And I think that's also a conflict sometimes when it comes to making decisions, because, you know, it's terrible when, you know, you had in your heart you had a certain decisions, and then maybe, you know, somebody made a decision for you, or you're not happy about it. As what Samson was saying, I loved the 10-10-10. Is it the 10-10-10 rule, right?
Yeah, it's the 10-10-10 rule.
Yeah, I really liked it. So, you know, we should think of the long-term consequences of our decisions, and that really help us to see that's something. If you can live with it for 10 days, that could be fine. But when you think of 10 months, 10 years, that's quite a lot. So you would not want to tolerate that. And, you know, weighing things like that is really, it's really great and impactful. Okay, so I wonder if so I'm not seeing any questions. My people, today you're too quiet. You want us to let our facilitator go just like that without any questions? Or we have
My,
been we've been you know, we've been loaded with so much knowledge. Maybe, yeah, maybe people can also share their takeaways or something. And well, I don't know if Chris, you'd have something to say about you know.
yeah, bias. Yes, biases and how they. I think he wanted to share something on biases.
So who is that? Sorry.
I remember Chris mentioning something like that, that he would like to share something on.
Oh, I think that was Fortune. I think that was
That
Fortune.
was Fortune.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I think he's not been able to join you today. Yeah.
okay.
So maybe if Chris can have anything to say, I don't know, from experience or anything, what's
Uh, okay, thank you. Samson, very good presentation. Thought-provoking.
Thanks.
Yeah, gave insights into things that, you know, we take for granted every day. So for me, it's just something that I have come to view decision making in terms of approach. So for me, I have come to view decisions not as being right or wrong, but simply that, you know, any decision that I make has different consequences. What it does is to help me not be scared of making decisions. So instead of, agonizing whether this is the right or wrong decision, I know that whatever decision I make, even if I think, if you were to look at it from the point of view that this is the right decision, it will still have consequences. So personally, I've seen that it helps me be comfortable to make decisions. I just ask myself, which consequences am I able to live with, or am I not, able to deal
Exactly.
with? So I find myself not agonizing too much about decisions. So yeah, that's what I can share.
Okay, thank you so much. And that's very interesting. I think also sometimes we don't decide because we're too busy thinking about the consequences of decisions, and we end up not making any decisions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love the point of view that you should not be afraid of decisions that you make because of the consequences, and that's that requires courage and I don't, some boldness, yeah, some boldness in that. Thank you, Chris, for sharing that. Okay, so I see our people are just too quiet, no comments, no anything.
They should remember that indecision is a decision in itself.
Oh yeah. So they're deciding not to do, not
Yeah,
to engage.
just also to I think I've got something that I didn't comment on Pili's comment here,
Yeah.
when she say that it's much worse when you can't decide for them. So obviously, if it's a child and you're the mother or the father or your big brother, big sister, you'd want to decide for them because maybe we cannot trust their faculties to make the best decisions. But as much as possible, we should be allowing people to make their own decisions. Um, at times, we might think that we are saving people by deciding for them, but controlling people and their decisions might always lead to a later conflict or a bad situation, or maybe escalating a bad outcome. So, as much as possible, allow people to make their own decision. That way, they're responsible for their own decisions. Yeah, I think that's the reason that God has never chosen a wife or a husband for anyone, because we will be blaming him. The marriage is bad because it is you who chose, unless you choose yourself, so that you now have to deal with the consequences of your decision. So as much as possible, please don't decide what people are going to do in their lives, except if they're kids. Yeah, if they're kids, obviously they can't decide what's best for them. Obviously, as parents and adults, we should be deciding for them.
Hmm. Okay, thank you for elaborating on that. Thank you so much, Sam. And yeah, I think we will have, we'll have a conclusion to this if there are no further comments or questions. But personally, I've really enjoyed this session. And yeah, just as Chris said, some of these things we take for granted, you just make decisions when you have a decision to make, but the art in it, the approach in it, we usually don't really take it into so much consideration. So learning about this, just adds gives us insights and power to encounter such moments and such situations. So thank you so much, Samson, for that, and we appreciate. I'd like to extend my gratitude to everyone, participants who has been able to make it today, and to engage or just to listen. So yeah, we have reached the end of our session, and let's meet again next week on Tuesday, and we're going to be having a wonderful session on branding. So let's not miss out on that. And yeah, let's also try to be a bit early. I think we had some 5 minutes just waiting for everyone to join in, but let's try our best to keep time and arrive early so that we can have a good time during the session. Otherwise, I wish you a great night and the best week ahead as we go end it. Until next week, bye bye. Thank you.
thank you all for your time and your attention. And thank you all for the comments and for the appreciations. I really love the inputs that you guys have brought in. And wow, thank you. It has been fun.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Samson. Bye
Good
bye.
night. Let me now drive home.
Yeah, please get home safely.
Cheers, cheers.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye.